Did you know that there's actually 66 books in the Bible and not just 65? And did you also know that the last book of the Bible is actually the longest book in the Bible? Well, today we're going to discover the 6th book of the Bible. It's an amazing book that most Christians have never heard of. So let's dive right in. God took his people Israel out of slavery in Egypt, and he brought them to the borders of Canaan, which was their promised land. But now they had to conquer this land. And amazingly, God promised that he would give them this land if they were willing to trust him. And so they go from being slaves in Egypt to being conquerors in Canaan. The book of Joshua teaches us that our faith is developed when we face opposition. In the book of Joshua, we see that God's power is demonstrated through weakness. And so when we feel weak, when we feel like we don't have the strength, that's when we can rely on God's strength. And God promises that he will be with Joshua and be his strength. And so when the obstacles come, when the giants come, when the enemies come, your faith will grow as you trust God and obey God in the midst of those circumstances. And I believe that you will be inspired by the leadership of Joshua, who was a strong leader. You'll be encouraged by the faithfulness of God, who kept his promises. And you'll be challenged to live a life of obedience and faith, trusting in God's power and strength. The 6th book of the Bible is called Joshua. It's a very unique book because it's the only book in the Old Testament that's named after someone other than Moses. Joshua tells us that if we obey God, we will be blessed. But if we disobey God, we will be cursed. And this is seen throughout the entire book. When Israel obeyed God, they were successful in battle. When they disobeyed God, they suffered the consequences. And here's 5 things that I believe you find amazing about the book of Joshua. And this book is extremely important because it bridges the gap between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Joshua picks up right where Exodus leaves off. God promised Abraham that his descendants would possess the land of Canaan, and it took about 400 years, but God kept his promise. And at the end of the book of Joshua, Joshua reminds the people of Israel that not one word from God has failed. The Israelites are at the border of the Promised Land, but they have not yet entered into the Promised Land. And Joshua helps us understand how God's people finally conquered the Promised Land and how they inherited the Promised Land. But there's so much more to the book of Joshua. Number 1, you'll discover how God's people went from slaves in Egypt to conquerors in Canaan. This is an amazing story of redemption. 2, you will see how God's promises are sure. 3, you'll learn about the importance of obedience. 4, you will see how faith is developed. And 5, you'll learn how God's power is demonstrated through weakness. So I encourage you to dive into the book of Joshua and discover these amazing truths for yourself. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.